Fleet Commander Zyx'Thraxis watched his multifaceted compound eyes dilate in horror as the message status changed from sending to delivered. The iridescent chitin around his eye stalks paled to a sickly yellow-green, a sure sign of extreme distress among the Kreldorian military elite. "Sub-Commander Plebe," he chittered slowly, mandibles clicking in the precise rhythm that indicated barely contained rage. "Please tell me you did not just send that particular message to the humans." Plib's exoskeleton quivered, causing small flakes of molten chitin to drift onto the pristine command deck floor. His third left appendage nervously tapped against his communication badge. "I may have hit send all instead of draft again, sir," Plib admitted, his voice rising to the high-pitched whine that made most Kreldorians instinctively reach for their sonic dampeners. "But surely it can't be that bad. It was just the standard first contact greeting template." Zyx'Thraxis spun all four of his command chair's gyroscopic bearings to face his subordinate directly. That was not the standard greeting template. That was the file labeled Absolute Last Resort, Total War Declaration. "Oh," squeaked Plib. "The one containing specific insults about human reproduction that our xenobiologists crafted after studying their most offensive communication patterns." "Oh no. The one comparing their entire species to the excretory habits of a Kreldorian swamp beast." "Technically, sir," Pleb ventured, his eye stalks retracting slightly in submission, "I believe it specifically compared their facial features to—" "Silence!" Zyx'Thraxis' mandibles clacked so loudly that the navigation officer 2 stations away flinched. "You've just declared total war on a species we know almost nothing about, except that they've colonized 7 planets in less than a century." The command deck fell silent, broken only by the soft pinging of an incoming transmission. The communications officer, wisely keeping all appendages firmly at her station, announced, "Response from the humans, Commander." The main view screen flickered to life. There was no formal diplomatic entourage, no military posturing, just a single human sitting in what appeared to be some kind of recreational area, holding a steaming beverage. The human took a long, deliberate sip, then slowly raised one eyebrow at the camera before the transmission ended. "That's it?" Plim asked, antenna twitching in confusion. "What does it mean?" Before Zyx'Thraxis could respond, the Emperor's priority channel chimed. The commander's exoskeleton tightened involuntarily as the imposing figure of Emperor Kichatak II, standing in his ceremonial battle armor, adorned with the mandibles of fallen enemies. "Glorious news, Commander," the Emperor boomed, his massive forelimbs gesticulating wildly with characteristic dramatic flair. "I've been informed we've finally found a worthy adversary. These humans will make excellent additions to my trophy wall." "Your Magnificence," Zyx'Thraxis began carefully, "there's been a misunderstanding. Sub-Commander Plib accidentally—" "There are no accidents in the glorious Kreldorian military," the Emperor interrupted, eye stalks quivering with excitement. "Only opportunities seized by the brave. We must follow through immediately to show our strength." "But, sire, my analysis of human historical records suggests they might be unusually resilient." The Emperor's mandibles clicked in a pattern that translated roughly to royal dismissal, with a side of derision. "How dangerous can a species be when their young are so defenseless they can't even digest solid food for months? Our hatchlings emerge ready to devour their siblings." The Emperor's thorax expanded with pride. "Prepare the fleet for battle. I expect their surrender transmission within 1 standard cycle." As the transmission ended, Zyx'Thraxis slumped in his command chair. "Sub-Commander Plebe." "Yes, Commander? If we survive this, I'm demoting you to waste reclamation duty." "That's fair, sir." The Kreldorian battle fleet emerged from hyperspace with practiced precision, their chitinous hulls gleaming in the light of Proxima Centauri. 16 dreadnoughts, 32 destroyers, and over 100 support vessels arranged themselves in the Empire's feared Mandible of Death formation, a tactical pattern that had brought 57 species to their knees over 3 centuries of galactic conquest. Fleet Commander Zyx'Thraxis stood on the command deck of the flagship Inevitable Consumption, his exoskeleton freshly polished for what the Emperor had declared would be a glorious but brief demonstration of Kreldorian superiority. "Scanners, report," he ordered, trying to ignore the nervous clicking of Sub-Commander Plib's mandibles behind him. "Colony detected on the 4th planet, Commander," replied the sensor officer. "Standard human settlement pattern. Population approximately—" "Wait, that can't be right." "What is it, Lieutenant?" "I'm detecting only a single life form, sir. Human biosignature." Zyx'Thraxis's eye stalks extended to their full alert position. "Impossible. Our intelligence indicated over 10,000 colonists." "Perhaps they fled when they detected our approach," suggested Plib, momentarily forgetting his place. The commander's head swiveled 180 degrees to glare at his subordinate. And how exactly would primitive humans detect a Kreldorian stealth approach? 15 decks below and 2 kilometers away, in the junior officer's recreation chamber of the destroyer Chitinous Vengeance, Ensign Krill was watching a human broadcast on his personal entertainment device. The female human on screen was saying something about breaking news from amateur astronomer and high school junior Ellie Patel, who detected what appears to be an alien fleet approaching Proxima Centauri b with her homemade radio telescope. Back on the flagship, Zyx'Thraxis had made his decision. "Deploy the landing force, secure whatever's down there." The Kreldorian assault shuttles touched down in perfect formation, surrounding the colony's central plaza. Armored troops poured out, weapons charged and ready for the resistance that never came. Instead, they found a single human, sitting in what appeared to be a folding chair made of synthetic fabric and aluminium tubing. The human wore what their intelligence files identified as cargo shorts and a garment with the inexplicable text, "I paused my game to be here." "Hi there," the human called out cheerfully, raising a container of liquid in greeting. "Name's Dave Ramirez, Assistant Deputy Administrator of Alien Diplomatic Relations. Hope you guys called ahead for reservations, because we're pretty booked up this time of year." The Kreldorian Ground Commander advanced cautiously. "Where are the other humans? Our intelligence indicated a colony of thousands." Dave took a long sip from his container before answering. "Oh, they're around, say. Those are some interesting eye stalks you've got there. Do they get satellite reception? Because honestly, attacking humans is probably the worst decision you've made since evolving those ridiculous things." The commander's mandibles clicked in the pattern that signified affronted dignity. "You will surrender immediately and accompany us to our vessel for interrogation." "Yeah, about that." Dave reached into his pocket and pulled out what the Kreldorians' files identified as an obsolete human entertainment control device. "I'm gonna have to decline." The commander signaled his troops to advance. "Seize the human!" Dave pressed a button on the remote with exaggerated slowness. Boop! The entire colony, buildings, streets, vehicles, everything except Dave and his chair, flickered and vanished. The Kreldorians froze, suddenly finding themselves standing in an empty field. "Holographic projection," Dave explained helpfully. "Pretty neat, huh?" A high-pitched humming filled the air, as what had appeared to be ordinary pebbles scattered across the landscape suddenly rose into the air. Thousands of tiny drones, no bigger than a human thumb. "Don't worry," Dave assured them as the drones swarmed toward the Kreldorian ships hovering above. "They're not weapons. We're not barbarians." The drones attached themselves to the hulls of the Kreldorian vessels and began spraying some kind of rapidly hardening pigment. Within minutes, the fearsome invasion fleet had been transformed into a floating carnival of neon colors, decorated with phrases like "Galaxy's grumpiest shrimp," and "I invaded Earth and all I got was this loosey paint job." As the Kreldorian troops stood frozen in confusion, Dave's chair began to shimmer with a familiar teleportation effect. "Well, it's been real, but I've got a thing," he said, offering a two-fingered salute. "Oh, almost forgot. My card." He flicked a small rectangle that landed at the commander's feet, just as the teleportation completed. The Kreldorian looked down to see a simple white business card bearing a hand-drawn smiley face and the words, "We tried to be nice." From orbit, Fleet Commander Zyx'Thraxis watched in horror as his once mighty fleet was transformed into what looked like the aftermath of an art supply explosion. "Sub-Commander Plebe?" "Yes, Commander." "I believe we may have miscalculated." Emperor Katak's rage echoed through the Imperial Palace as technicians desperately tried to remove the neon paint from the returning fleet vessels. The paint had somehow bonded molecularly with the chitinous hulls. Attempts to remove it only made the colors brighter and added glitter. "To mobilization," the Emperor shrieked, his eye stalks extended so far they were in danger of snapping. "Every ship, every warrior, I want those humans on their knees, begging for mercy or extinct. Preferably both." Grand Admiral Vex Chitlik, the Empire's most decorated warrior, clicked his mandibles cautiously. "Your Magnificence, perhaps we should consider a more measured—" "Are you questioning my strategic genius?" The Emperor's voice reached a pitch that caused several nearby crystal decorations to shatter. A molted plate fell from his thorax, signaling extreme agitation. "Of course not, Your Magnificence," Vex Chitlik backpedaled, all 6 legs moving in synchronized appeasement. "Full mobilization it is." Meanwhile, in the United Nations headquarters on Earth, the Security Council's emergency session had devolved into what could only be described as organized chaos. "Gentlemen, ladies, and non-binary representatives," Secretary General Okonkwo said, trying to maintain order, "we need a coordinated response to this alien aggression." General Matthews of the United States Space Force slammed his fist on the table. "We hit them with everything we've got. Our orbital defense platforms can be ready in 48 hours. "Too conventional," dismissed Dr. Lakshmi Patel, CEO of Quantum Logic Technologies. "My company has developed a prototype entropy manipulator that could theoretically turn their ships inside out." "And theoretically turn half the solar system into rice pudding," objected the European Union representative. "We need something more controlled." The Australian representative, who had been unusually quiet, cleared his throat. "Look, I'm just saying, we send them some of our spiders and see what happens. Maybe a few drop bears for good measure." There was a momentary silence as everyone contemplated this uniquely Australian solution. "Perhaps we need a different approach altogether," suggested the Chinese ambassador. "This is clearly a case where military tradition meets cultural misunderstanding." The doors swung open dramatically, revealing a woman in her late 50s wearing a meticulously pressed naval uniform adorned with enough medals to set off metal detectors in 3 adjacent rooms. Admiral Chen walked to the center of the chamber with the measured pace of someone who had faced down supernovas and found them lacking in both heat and light. "Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished others," she said, her voice as calm as a black hole and twice as compelling. "While you've been discussing how to blow things up, my team has been analyzing the Kreldorian transmissions." She tapped a control, and a holographic projection appeared showing the alien fleet's movements. "They're predictable, hierarchical, and completely unprepared for humanity's particular brand of psychological warfare." "What do you suggest, Admiral?" asked the Secretary General. Admiral Chen's face remained impassive, but those who knew her well might have detected the ghost of a smile. "I've already initiated our response. My first action was to request the weird stuff from Section 9. "Section 9, whispered the Brazilian representative to his neighbor. "I didn't know we had a Section 9. "Nobody does," replied the Norwegian delegate. "That's the point." 3 weeks later, the Kreldorian assault force dropped out of hyperspace near humanity's major orbital habitat in the Epsilon Eridani system. The massive space station served as a strategic hub for human expansion, and its capture would deal a significant blow to the apes' morale. At least, that was the plan. What the Kreldorians found instead was perplexing. "Commander," the sensor officer reported, mandibles clicking in confusion, "the station appears to have been redecorated." On the view screen, what should have been a military installation now resembled some kind of commercial center, complete with garish neon signs. One particularly large sign flashed alternating messages: "Best Pie in the Quadrant," and "Clean Restrooms. Saul 7422, known species, accommodated. "It's a trick," declared Commander Zyx'Thraxis. "Prepare boarding parties." The Kreldorian troops, expecting resistance, instead found themselves emerging into what appeared to be a bustling restaurant. Various species, many the Kreldorians didn't even recognize, sat at tables, consuming food and beverages. A jukebox played something called Highway to Hell. "Welcome to Milky Way Munchies," called a human wearing an apron with "Kiss the Cook" or "Don't Consent Matters" emblazoned across it. "Table for 40 heavily armed mantis warriors? Let me see what we can do." "This is a military operation," Zyx'Thraxis chittered furiously. "Where is the station commander?" "That be me," said a stocky human who rolled forward on wheeled shoes. "Jamie Wheelhouse Rodriguez, station manager. Before that, 3-time Sol System roller derby champion. Still got the bruises to prove it." "This is impossible," Zyx'Thraxis sputtered, eye stalks swiveling to take in the impossible scene. "Our intelligence indicated this was a military installation." "Oh, that was ages ago," Jamie waved dismissively. "We converted it about 6 months back. The Arcturian Trade Federation helped with the financing. Those folks really know their way around a commercial real estate deal." A tall, gelatinous being slithered past, leaving a trail of sweet-smelling slime. "Rodriguez, your establishment continues to provide adequate nutrition at reasonable exchange rates. My spawning cluster sends their appreciation." "Thanks, Gloop. Try the banana split next time. Right up your biochemical alley." Zyx'Thraxis' mandibles clacked in frustration. "Where are your weapons, your defenses?" Jamie pointed to a colorful board listing various food items. "Have you tried our chili? That's a weapon of mass destruction. Had a Rigelian in here last week who grew an extra digestive tract just to process it." As if to confirm this, a blue-skinned alien nearby groaned and clutched its midsection. "Worth it," it wheezed. "This is absurd," Zyx'Thraxis hissed. "Kreldorians, we are leaving." As they retreated, Jaime called after them, "Come back for our Tuesday special, 2-for-1 appetizers and karaoke night." When the report reached the Emperor, 3 more plates of his exoskeleton molted simultaneously. "They've been conducting interstellar diplomacy and commerce with dozens of species," he shrieked. "Without US knowing?" "It appears so, Your Magnificence," Fleet Commander Zyx'Thraxis confirmed. The station guest registry included representatives from 43 different civilizations, including several we thought were extinct. The Emperor's eye stalks twitched violently. "This is intolerable. If they want to play games, we'll show them true warfare. Attack Earth directly, all forces, no mercy." A thin plate of chitin slid from the Emperor's thorax and clattered to the floor, where a cleaning drone quickly vacuumed it up. "As you command, Your Magnificence," Zyx'Thraxis responded, wondering if he should update his will before the mission. The largest armada in Kreldorian history dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Over 3,000 warships, their hulls bristling with weapons, formed a formation that blotted out the stars themselves. In the central command chamber of the flagship Imperial Mandate, Emperor Kachatuk Tex HE himself sat upon his war throne, freshly molted and resplendent in ceremonial armor. "At last," he chittered, his mandibles spread wide in anticipation, "the final battle begins. Show me the pathetic human defenses." The view screen activated, showing nothing. Just Earth, blue and serene, with no visible defensive fleet or orbital weapons platforms. "Magnify," the Emperor commanded. "Where are their warships, their planetary shields?" Fleet Commander Zyx'Thraxis, who had been quietly dreading this moment, cleared his throat. "Your Magnificence, I'm detecting some unusual satellite structures in orbit, but no conventional defenses." "Don't look!" The Emperor's thorax vibrated with malicious glee. "They've surrendered before we even arrived. Advance the fleet." The armada lurched forward, and chaos erupted. As ships crossed an invisible threshold, they simply disappeared, vanishing in flashes of quantum displacement. Across the fleet, panicked communications flooded in. "This is dreadnought inevitable consumption. We've been teleported to some kind of gas giant? There's a human research station here and they're offering us refreshments. Assault carrier Chitin's Fury reporting. We're somehow in orbit around an asteroid. There's a mining operation, humans and Arcturians working together. The foreman just asked if we're here for the second shift excavator position. Scout Squadron 7 here. We've materialized near a small artificial moon, and the humans living there have invited us to something called a neighborhood barbecue. The Emperor's eye stalks extended to their full height in alarm. What trickery is this? What's happening to my fleet? Zyx'Thraxis studied his console. Quantum entanglement technology, Your Magnificence. They've somehow created a teleportation grid throughout their entire system. Impossible! The Emperor's mandibles clacked violently. No species has mastered quantum teleportation on this scale. Before Zyx'Thraxis could respond, the Imperial Mandate itself shuddered and flashed, rematerializing beside what appeared to be a small, unassuming space station shaped like an archaic data-binding tool from Earth. "What is that?" demanded the Emperor. "Appears to be a paperclip, Your Magnificence," reported the sensor officer. As they watched, the station began to unfold like some kind of cosmic origami, panels sliding and reconfiguring until it had transformed into an enormous fabrication facility. Lights activated along its length, and from massive apertures, streams of gleaming metallic objects poured forth. "They're actual paperclips?" Zyx'Thraxis said, his voice betraying his bewilderment. Billions of the tiny metal fasteners swarmed through space, surrounding the Kreldorian vessels. They didn't impact or damage the ships. Instead, they began linking together, forming an intricate three-dimensional lattice that connected the vessels in an unbreakable web. Within minutes, the entire fleet was immobilized, each ship bound to dozens of others in a gently undulating paperclip sculpture. A communication channel opened automatically, and a human face appeared on screen. Admiral Chen, looking as unperturbed as if she were ordering coffee. "Emperor Kachatak," she said with a slight nod, "welcome to Earth. We figured you needed something to hold your empire together. Consider it a gift." The Emperor's exoskeleton trembled with rage. "What is the meaning of this? Why aren't you fighting back properly? Where are your warships, your weapons of mass destruction?" Admiral Chen's expression didn't change, but something like amusement flickered in her eyes. "Oh, honey," she replied, "who says we're not?" While the Kreldorian military struggled to untangle itself from the most embarrassing strategic defeat in Imperial history, on Earth, a nondescript office building housed what might be humanity's most devastating weapon: cubicles. Inside, 24 individuals in casual clothing hunched over holographic displays, drinking alarming amounts of caffeine and arguing about memes. Their official designation was Cultural Exchange Initiative Team 7, but their security clearance files read Memetic Warfare Division. "Upload complete," announced Dr. Aisha Mbeki, lead information architect, as she spun in her chair triumphantly. "The entire Wikipedia database is now integrated with the Kreldorian Central Information Network. Social media platforms are live," added Jin Park, toggling through screens of code. "TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Classic, and, may the digital gods forgive us, Reddit." Colonel Daniels, the only person in uniform, looked concerned. "Are we sure about the streaming services?" The UN Ethics Committee had serious reservations about exposing unprepared civilizations to the Real Housewives. "Too late," said Ravinder Singh, hitting enter with a flourish. Netflix, Disney+, HBO Max, Legacy, and the entire YouTube archive just went live. I may have also included my aunt's cooking channel. Her biryani tutorial is going to blow their exoskeletons off. On the Kreldorian homeworld of Chelicerae Prime, life ground to a sudden and unexpected halt. In the central manufacturing complex, production supervisor Klikchatka stared transfixed at her information terminal. She had discovered something called cat videos 16 hours ago and hadn't moved since. Her subordinates, similarly entranced by various human digital offerings, hadn't noticed. In residential hive complexes across the planet, Kreldorians who had never questioned their militaristic society were suddenly exposed to thousands of alternative ways of living, thinking, and spending time. concepts like weekend, happy hour, and binging shows spread faster than any virus. "Have you seen this?" asked junior hatchery technician Zyx'Thraxis, showing his clutchmate a human dance called the Macarena. "Apparently they do this at what they call parties, social gatherings, with no military purpose whatsoever." "Fascinating," replied his clutchmate, not looking up from a recipe for chocolate chip cookies she was trying to adapt for Kreldorian biochemistry. "Did you know humans spend hours preparing food solely for enjoyment, not just nutritional intake?" At the Central Military Academy, attendance dropped 80% overnight. Cadets who had once dreamed of battlefield glory now aspired to become influencers, streamers, or that guy who tries weird food and makes faces at the camera. The most surprising phenomenon emerged from the imperial palace itself. Princess Zyx'Thraxis, the emperor's teenage offspring and 17th in line for the throne, discovered human video platforms and reinvented herself overnight. Her reaction videos to human historical events, featuring her unique misinterpretations of Earth culture, went viral across the planet. "What's up, exoskeletons? It's your girl, Trixer," she began each broadcast, her royal chambers redecorated with posters of human pop stars. "Today we're reacting to something called the moon landing, which is apparently not about colonizing a natural satellite for military purposes, but just going there? To plant a flag? Make it make sense, humans?" Her catchphrase became ubiquitous. Merchandise appeared overnight. Exoskeleton Squad. T-shirts were being worn by Kreldorians who had previously only worn military uniforms or ceremonial armor. Emperor Kachatak III XO, still dealing with the paperclip crisis and now facing domestic collapse, arranged an emergency planet-wide broadcast. "Citizens of the glorious Kreldorian Empire," he began, eye stalks quivering with righteous fury, "we have been attacked by insidious human cultural weapons. Return to your duties. Remember your proud warrior heritage. The humans are trying to destroy us through..." But hardly anyone was watching. Those who briefly tuned in immediately shared memes mocking the emperor's outdated rhetoric. Within minutes, Emp's Big Madlal was trending across all platforms, accompanied by edited clips of his speech set to humorous music. In her monitoring station on Earth, Colonel Daniels watched the real-time metrics of Kreldorian society's transformation with a mixture of awe and horror. "My God," she whispered, "we've turned an entire warrior civilization into us." Emperor Kachatak KXEIRE personal shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, escorted by 6 Kreldorian guard ships and 16 human vessels that appeared to be broadcasting something called road trip playlists on all frequencies. The Emperor had reluctantly agreed to peace negotiations after his homeworld's economy collapsed due to what his advisors termed catastrophic productivity diversion to non-essential activities, which was a polite way of saying nobody was working because they were too busy watching cat videos. "We are approaching the designated coordinates, Your Magnificence," reported the pilot. "Scanners detect numerous life forms, including multiple non-human species." "A trap," hissed the Emperor, his freshly molted exoskeleton still soft and pale. "Prepare defensive protocols." The shuttle touched down in a grassy field beside what appeared to be a small food dispensary with a neon sign reading, "Ethel's Diner, best pie this side of the Mississippi since 2042. The Emperor was perplexed to note several dozen other ships already parked nearby, ranging from sleek diplomatic vessels to what appeared to be family recreational crafts, with bumper stickers declaring, "My child is an honor student at Mars Colony Elementary." "Your Magnificence," the guard captain advised, "perhaps I should scout ahead." "No," the Emperor chittered, drawing himself up to his full, impressive height. "If this is to be my end, I shall face it with dignity." As the shuttle doors opened, the Emperor was hit not by weapons fire, but by the smell of grilled meats, baked goods, and a cacophony of casual conversation. Before him stretched long tables covered in colorful cloths laden with food. Humans of all ages mingled with at least 24 species of aliens, many of which even the well-traveled Emperor had never encountered. A small human with silver hair and wrinkles that suggested advanced age approached, carrying a container of yellow-white food substance. "Well, aren't you an impressive fella?" she exclaimed, looking the Emperor up and down without a trace of fear. "I'm Gladys Abernathy. Welcome to Potter County. Here, have some potato salad. It's world famous, or at least famous in this county, which is pretty much my world at 87. She thrust a plate toward him, adding, "You're too skinny. Do your people not feed their leaders properly?" Bewildered, the Emperor accepted the plate, his mandibles clicking in confusion. "I am Emperor Kachatak KHXXER7AR, sovereign ruler of the Kreldorian Empire, conqueror of the 7 sectors, devourer of—" "That's nice, dear," Gladys interrupted. "Try the deviled eggs, too. My secret is a dash of paprika." "Your Magnificence," whispered his advisor urgently. "I've identified Admiral Chen at that wooden recreational seating apparatus." Or across the gathering, Admiral Sophia Chen sat casually at a picnic table, consuming a frozen dairy confection from a waffle cone. She nodded to the Emperor and gestured to the bench opposite her. The Emperor approached cautiously, his guard detail forming a protective perimeter that was immediately compromised by a group of human children running through it, playing some form of pursuit game. "Empress Kachatak," Admiral Chen greeted him. "Please, sit. Try the ice cream, our finest Earth delicacy." "This is most irregular," the Emperor said, but lowered himself onto the bench. "I was expecting formal surrender proceedings." "Oh, this is formal by Nebraska standards," Chen replied, licking her ice cream cone. "Now let's discuss terms. The United Nations has prepared a very reasonable peace treaty." She slid a datapad across the table. The Emperor's compound eyes widened as he read. "These terms are unusual. You require our military officers to attend How Not to Be Galactic Jerks seminars, and our food preparation specialists must participate in something called an interstellar bake-off. The cultural exchange program is non-negotiable," Chen said, finishing her cone. "Your people have shown a remarkable aptitude for human culture. We'd like to build on that." The Emperor's mandibles clicked in agitation. "I don't understand your species, Admiral. This isn't how Conquest works. Why didn't you just destroy us? You clearly could have." Chen shrugged, brushing ice cream crumbs from her uniform. "What would be the point? You're much more useful as trading partners. Besides," she added with a hint of a smile, "your princess's social media is hilarious. Her take on the Middle Ages? Priceless." The Emperor's eye stalks drooped in defeat. "The Kreldorian Empire accepts your terms, Admiral." "Excellent," Chen replied. "Now, I believe Gladys is about to bring out her triple-layer chocolate cake. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. It's the real weapon of mass destruction around here." 6 months after the historic Surrender Potluck, the first human Kreldorian Cultural Exchange Center opened its doors on Chelesare Prime. The gleaming building, shaped like a hybrid between a traditional Kreldorian hivespire and a 21st-century Earth shopping mall, dominated the capital city's skyline. Zyx'Thraxis, formerly Fleet Commander, now Minister of Human Relations, led a group of Earth reporters on the inaugural tour. His once military bearing had softened slightly, though his eye stalks still twitched with mild anxiety whenever anyone mentioned email systems. "As you can see," he explained, gesturing with a dignified sweep of his forelimb, "we've created spaces celebrating both our cultures. On your left is Mandibles and Mouths, our fusion cuisine restaurant where Chef Gordon Ramsay has been teaching our chefs that food can be more than merely nutritional sustenance." Through the transparent walls, they could see Kreldorian chefs in human-style toques working alongside human counterparts, creating dishes that accommodated both species' biochemistry. "And this," Zyx'Thraxis continued, "is our most popular exhibit, the Meme History Museum. It chronicles the evolution of human digital communication, from primitive lolcats through the dank era and into modern quantum-entangled memetics." A group of young Kreldorians chittered excitedly as they posed for photos in front of a giant replica of the distracted boyfriend image, their eye stalks positioned at comically exaggerated angles. "Minister Thraxis," called out a reporter, "can you comment on the success of Princess Zyx'Thraxis' talk show?" Zyx'Thraxis's mandibles formed the Kreldorian equivalent of a proud smile. The princess's Trixatalks viewership now spans 3 sectors. In fact, if you'll follow me to Studio 1, today's episode features a very special guest. Inside the studio, Princess Zyx'Thraxis, her exoskeleton adorned with glittering jewels, arranged in patterns inspired by human fashion, sat across from a relaxed-looking human. "So, Dave Ramirez," she said, her translator conveying the perfect talk show host inflection. "What was it like being, as the humans say, the guy who sassed an entire alien empire?" Dave shrugged. "Honestly, I was just killing time until my DoorDash arrived. The whole saving humanity thing was a happy accident." The studio audience, a mix of humans and Kreldorians, erupted in laughter and mandible clicking. The show's surprise segment featured Emperor Kachatak VIII himself entering to thunderous applause wearing a Kiss the Cook apron over casual attire. "Big news, exoskeletons," he announced, using his daughter's catchphrase. "I'm officially abdicating the throne to focus on my cookbook, Imperial Gastronomy, and my new podcast, Malt and Mindfulness, a former warlord's journey to inner peace." Later that day, in a classroom deep within the center, a mixed group of Kreldorian and human children sat attentively as their teacher, the unmistakable, perpetually nervous form of former Sub-Commander Plib, conducted a lesson on interspecies relations. "So," Plib asked, his eye stalks extending to their full pedagogical height, "what have we learned about humans and Kreldorians working together?" A small Kreldorian, barely past his first molt, raised a delicate claw. "Humans don't fight wars like everyone else. They don't want your resources or territory." Beside him, a human girl with braids nodded solemnly. "We just want everyone to chill out, maybe try some tacos, and follow us on social media." Plib's mandibles clicked in what might have been a sigh or a suppressed laugh. "Close enough. Today's lesson: why you should always double-check before hitting send all." The class giggled as Plib's exoskeleton turned a deeper shade of blue, the Kreldorian equivalent of an embarrassed blush. But he smiled too. After all, his catastrophic email error had ultimately led to the most peaceful and prosperous era either species had ever known. Sometimes the greatest diplomatic triumphs begin with the most absurd mistakes.